Hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean homesteading, dirt can mean farming, dirt can mean politics, dirt can mean religion, dirt can mean anything we want it to mean. And so I'm super excited to record this podcast today with Becky. And Becky is a goat farmer from, I don't remember where you're from, but I'm sure you'll let us know. And you're from Kobe Way Farms. And so thank you for coming on the show today. Super excited to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. And I'm from Fresno, Ohio, which no one has ever heard of. So it's okay that you don't remember that.
Perfect. I'm not even sure I know where Ohio is. I'm a Canadian girl. So where's Ohio? It's in the middle somewhere. No, it's on the East Coast, isn't it? I don't remember.
Both, actually. Yes. So mid-central, east of Chicago, west of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Perfect. And so you're farming out there. So tell us a little bit about your farm. What do you got going on there?
So our little farm started as just kind of a way for my husband and I to get away. We went back to our roots. I actually grew up on this property. Mom and dad built the house a couple of years ago. And when they moved out, we moved in. And so we kind of started turning it into a farm. I decided I wanted some goats. I got some Nigerian dwarf goats, and then goat math took over and I got lots of goats. I actually had chickens when we moved in, and chicken math is definitely a thing. So now we have lots of chickens. We wanted to start having the farm just kind of feed us, take care of our family. So my husband is a consummate carnivore. He does not eat things that grow in my garden. So I had to get creative. And I said, well, that means that we're going to have rabbits for meat, and we're going to have pigs for meat, and we're, maybe going to eat a goat now and then, and we're going to hunt because we're in the woods. And so we're not 100% sustainable by any means, but we're trying to take steps to get to that point. So that's really kind of why we want a farm started, to get us out of the corporate, and kind of get us on a little quieter path.
I love it. Okay, so chicken math, goat math, rabbit math. Well, rabbit math for sure. Isn't there a thing about breed like rabbits? So it's all a thing for sure. The math does math on those animals. So how many animals do you have right now? Where are you at with your animal count?
Probably should have given me a heads up on that one. It's not as bad. We sold some goats. I've got 27 goats, I think 20 rabbits right now, and 30 something chickens and 5 pigs.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's the thing. People, I've been doing farmers markets these days, and I've been bringing a chicken as an example to the farmers markets, and the kids love it. And they got mad when I forgot the chickens, and and so people would come up to me and they'd be like, what's your chicken's name? And I'm like, 138, my chickens don't have names. Like they're not pets. They're animals. They're for farms. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand is when you get to that size, they're not your pets. Homesteading is really cute on Pinterest, but farm animals are not pets. They are animals. They are, there for a purpose. And so, yeah, how's number 128 for you? Oh no, you don't have 128. How's number 5 for you?
Yeah, I don't have quite that many at this point. We've probably been through that many though. And yeah, I get a lot. So, you're in a lot of social media groups and things, and I see, oh, my chicken's really sick. We're going to try to get an appointment at the vet. And I'm like, I respect that you want to take care of your animal, and maybe their chicken is a pet. When my chickens die, they feed the wildlife. Yep. This is how it works here. I don't have the resources financially, to keep everybody alive. And that's, we keep incubators so that we can replenish our chicken supply when the fox and the hawks and the coyotes and everything eats chicken. When all of those things start replenishing our flock, well, I'm just there to build them back up again.
Right. And, I'm going to rant a little too, because you're 100% right. I see the Facebook groups and things like that, and people are like, my poor sick chicken. And I'm like, I've got a solution for that. It's called an axe, or it's called my boot. Like I've done it. It's not fun. I want to say that the first time I did it, it was not fun. Like I might have even cried, but you just got to do what you got to do on a farm or a homestead. Like you can't run a sick chicken to the vet. The math doesn't math on that. And I think that's the part that people don't remember, is that on a farm or on a homestead, you have to make the math. And so I had a few pigs here. I butchered them. I got a little sick of them and I butchered them. I didn't do it. I got a guy to come in. But when I had my broilers, I had a little bit more loss this year than I've wanted. Just easing back into it. I hadn't done broilers in many years. And so I had a bunch of dead chickens. And I'll be honest with you, those dead chickens went to my pigs. Like, my pigs ate the chickens because it was a food source, like, I don't want to throw it in the bush. Those pigs will eat them. And they did. Every time I threw a dead chicken in my pig pen, they went carnivorous. Like, pigs are omnivores. Chickens are omnivores. They eat a little of everything. And so that's what people don't really understand is, like, even that dead chicken is a resource on a farm. It's worth something. And a little less than the vet bill.
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like Grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free Jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time.
100% yes. We care for our dogs a little bit differently. Dogs are pets. Even my guardian dogs that are out with the goats, I'm still going to take really good care of them, but they're also part of my staff. They're keeping my goats alive. That's a bigger deal to me. We lost a lot of goats last year. We had a barber pole infestation. That's a big thing. People with goats understand parasites are a thing. I hate losing goats, but if I'm going to mourn every goat that passes through here, I would not be a farmer anymore. I hate it. It hurts. It sucks. I've cried on a couple of them, but for the most part, I'm like, this is just a really crappy year. You learn, you figure out how to do it better next time, and you move on. We called in the vet for a couple of things. One, I wanted to confirm what I was dealing with. Once we confirmed what I was dealing with, I did the best I could to treat them. When it didn't work, I didn't call the vet back in and rush them for transfusions and things. Mine are not $10,000 show goats. They're show quality. They're not that show quality. So I'm not rushing mine to a high estate to have blood transfusions because they've got a parasite problem. They get everything I can throw at them here with the resources I have, because that's what makes sense. You are not going to run a homestead doing it that way. You can have a hobby farm, dump all the money you want to into fantastic animals. That's great. But if you're doing this as a way to sustain your family, that vet expense doesn't make any sense.
Agreed, 100%. And vets are expensive. And again, you're tic-tac-tishioning it. You're making decisions based on what works to feed yourself or to feed others, right? Because I'm sure you're not just feeding yourself, you're feeding others as well. And so you're making these decisions based on what pencils out on the bottom line of the books. And it's not that you're not caring for your animals at all. Like, your animal husbandry is very much a thing. You make them comfortable. You make them, do the best you can. But at the end of the day, sometimes that silver bullet is what it's going to take to make the math on that animal. And that's a horrible thing to talk about, but it's the reality on every farm. I've been involved with agriculture since I was 5 years old, and it's just one of those things that I know. I know that sometimes animals die. There's a saying, if you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. And yeah, you're right. If you cry every time, it's just not you'll be crying all the time because, shit happens on a farm and it goes sideways and you're like, oh, shoot, like, try again next time. And you're right. You learn from it. You do the best you can. And then you take those lessons and you do it better the next time. But sometimes it's not within your control, and natures and things happen. And yeah. So, okay, so tell me a bit about this parasite. So you've got goats, and I know that parasites, I just got my first 2 goats. I've had sheep before, I've had chickens, I've had cows. I've never had goats before, and so I'm just brand new to this whole goat thing. What Parasites and goats are a thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about parasites and goats. Parasites in goats are a big thing. Goats, you talk about going sideways fast. Goats can go from, I think everything is fabulous, to I've got a dead goat in a matter of maybe 48 hours or less. You really have to stay on top of watching for the signs. And the more you have them and the more you watch them, the more quickly you'll catch the signs that you've got a parasite problem. I promise you, if you have goats, you have parasites. There's no having a parasite-free herd. For one thing, there are some of those little bugs that just exist within your goat's biome all the time. Now, most of the time, your adults especially are going to be strong enough, have a strong enough immune system that the normal parasite load isn't really going to impact their overall health. They're just going to coexist. It's when you have young or when you have sickly or when you have weakened immune systems that a normal parasite load becomes a problem. But you also introduce a little bit of stress into your herd and you're going to have a higher parasite load. Once you get the higher parasite load, then you need to step in and intervene. I know here in the States, there's a big conversation about treating for parasites. There is still a lot of people who want to proactively treat for parasites. You don't proactively treat for parasites. You can't give your goat something to prevent parasites. You can boost up their system. You can give them the right nutrition. You can give them the right environment. You can clean their environment as much as you can. I'm sorry, goats poop everywhere. You're not going to have a clean environment, but you can take steps to make it better. You can offer them all kinds of boosters. We use herbal boosters. We use immune boosters. We make sure that we have a robust feeding program so that their body condition is always slightly over condition because it gives me more runway if things do go south. But when you're dealing with parasites, you have to understand which one you're dealing with. We run fecals on our goats. I learned how to do my own fecal samples. Put them in the solution, stick them under a microscope. I can at least identify what it is I'm dealing with. I don't have a great way to do counts. I know there are ways to do it. I just, you pick your battles. I can at least identify what it is that I'm dealing with, and that tells me which dewormer to use. I will not deworm a goat until I have a parasite problem. Now, just because I see parasites doesn't mean that there is a problem. Like I said, you got a normal parasite load in most goats. That's not a problem. Don't deworm that. It's fine. Deworm it when you start to see a problem, when you start to see that they're anemic, when you start to see problems with their stool, when you start to see lethargic goats, when you start to see coat condition problems. This is a systemic problem at that point, and we need to take steps. But you got to deworm with the right one. A lot of times it's guesswork. Part of the problem is we don't have enough research on goats to have a really good regimen to take care of those parasites. There just they haven't been in the States that long. They haven't been really domesticated as long as a lot of other farm animals. What we end up doing is using off-label. We use a sheep drench to deworm sometimes. I use horse paste to deworm. Part of the problem, probably part of the reason that we're doing that is because of the proactive deworming that has been done for a couple of generations now, where those parasites have created a resistance to standard goat treatments for these parasites. So we've had to step outside the box, and we had to go with bigger hammers. We had to get a bigger hammer for the problem because Safeguard was always the big thing. And then all of a sudden, Safeguard's not hitting anything. And why isn't it hitting anything? Well, because if you deworm your goat every month, the bugs that you're leaving in there are getting resistant to it. It's just like antibiotic resistance. It's the same concept. We kind of created our own problem. So we're having to go off label. And I will tell you, a lot of vets are not comfortable doing that. I am so fortunate that we have a local vet who is willing to, on the phone, without seeing my goat, is willing to say, pretty sure I know what you're dealing with. Go get a horse paste, get the sheep drenched, do these other things that aren't typically prescribed for goats. And I've kept a lot of goats alive because I have an outside the box vet, and I appreciate her like she is gold to me. And I don't always have to pay her to come out. I see posts all the time from people who say, I don't have a large animal vet. There's no vets close. Nobody will come see me. This is the only thing my vet will give me. Oh, uphill battle right there. That is such a valuable resource.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it just shows there is a time and a place for a vet. You've got a vet, you called her, you're, for the different things. But there's a difference between a goat and the value of a goat and the babies you're going to get off a goat is going to pay for that vet as opposed to the eggs or chicken or meat you're going to get off a chicken. I'm selling my eggs for $10 a dozen and my meat birds for $7 a pound. But even still, for me to call out the vet, I would have to sell 5 or 6 more just to cover off one vet bill, right? For one chicken. The math doesn't math, right? So, okay. So very interesting about the parasites and goats. I do know that goats really, really struggle with parasites. And so, I've dewormed mine. I was told so maybe you can educate me on this because I'm brand new at this. I did the drench with my sheep, just kind of, sheep are a little more, they're a little less volatile. They're a little more forgiving than goats are. And so, yeah, I gave some horse paste ivermectin to my goats because they had never had anything ever. And they were showing a few signs of a few things. And so, but I tripled the dose that a horse would get. And so, which seems crazy that, here you're giving this horse paste like ivermectin, which is a thing. And, I've even used ivermectin on myself, but, the farmer, right? What farmer hasn't? And so, and even when you're doing the drench with the sheep or whatever, you just get shit on you, right? So, anyways, so I tripled the dose and I gave it to my goats. And then 10 days later, I did another regimen. And so, but the goats that I purchased, they had never had anything. So I thought, it'd be safe to just do it one time. So yeah, it's really interesting. Do you have any more insight? Because this is fascinating. This would probably be really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, so you're tripling the dose because a goat's metabolism is completely different than a horse's metabolism. And with the sheep, it's the same thing. They look like a very similar animal, but the metabolism is actually completely different. A goat's metabolism is phenomenal. And so they do have to have a much higher dose. In most cases, you're going to triple whatever is on the label for your goats. Doing it again 10 days later is perfect. You have to understand the life cycle of your parasites. So you're treating the initial bloom, but there are eggs left inside. Those eggs are still they're not affected by your dewormer. When they emerge 10 days later, you've got another bloom happening. So you do have to do that again in 10 days to take care of the problem. There are also different classes of dewormers. And so with the barber pole worms, the barber poles are a strongyle, and strongyles are a pretty nasty one for goats. It's common to lose an entire herd of goats to barber pole worms. So I actually feel pretty fortunate that we had just the handful of losses that we did last year. But you can dual deworm with different classes. So if you kind of think of it as we've got the milky looking dewormers and we've got the clear dewormers. That's an easy way to determine you've got 2 different dewormers there. And you can dual deworm. You can hit them with a really high dose of things. The one thing that I will caution on that kind of thing is watch your rumen function. The rumen is the portion of the goat's stomach that ferments the hay and the feed and stuff. And that fermentation process is critical. It absolutely has to happen. So if you hit them too hard with too many medications and too many dewormers, you will actually damage the rumen function. And then you've got a whole other problem going on. You will have to jumpstart the rumen. Probiotics, an old farm trick, if you have a stalled out rumen, is to remove the cud from another goat's mouth, pop it in your goat, and that actually jumpstarts the bacteria that they need to restart fermentation. Don't get bit in the process. I guess that's the big trick. But, goats are much more complicated, I think, than I gave them credit for before I started this. It's been a huge learning process.
For sure. And I couldn't agree more. My sheep were easy. Cows, yeah. but goats are a whole different ball of wax. Like they're just totally different. So for our listeners, I've got a lot of listeners that are like, they err on the side of organic. And so when we talk about dewormer and we talk about things like this, let's chat for a moment about organic versus, like what we're doing. I deworm my animals, and I get it all the time with my feed. I'm feeding my chickens chicken feed. And so usually it's in cities, usually it's in towns, usually it's in people that really don't understand agriculture and farming. Let's talk about like the basics behind organics, especially in our meats and our animals. So what's your thought process on that?
My thought process is, if my goat dies, I don't have an organic goat anymore. So therefore, I'm going to do what I have to do to keep them alive. I guess I kind of prefer a holistic approach versus an organic approach here. Partly because I have a problem with the word organic, and we could go down a whole rabbit hole with that. But I understand the concept of organic meaning more natural. The way our government describes organic is not. I actually would not use that. I think they allow things that I would not consider organic in my world. I'm going to do what I have to do to keep my goats alive to an extent. Again, I'm not going to go out and break the bank doing it. However, I will throw whatever medication I have at them in the process. But I always try to start with as invasive as possible. So we do use herbal blends as dewormers. That's on a regular basis, because your parasites build up less of a tolerance to that kind of thing. It's really more, using an herbal dewormer is really more creating a generally inhospitable environment for the bugs to live. So there's a couple of places online that we buy powdered blends, and I just blend that into their feed on a relatively regular basis. We also... So I took a peek at what the ingredients are on those herbal blends, and a lot of them are very common plants that you can buy seed for. And I bought the seeds and I threw them out in my pasture. So my pasture is constantly growing the plants that are in those herbal blends as much as I can get it to do so. Because if the goats are getting this naturally, then I don't have to worry about using the chemical dewormers. The chemical dewormer is my last resort. I always err on the side of, let's go with the most natural, let's go with the least invasive before we go to that point. But I'm not going to say, I will never use a chemical dewormer, I'll never use an antibiotic, I'll never use anything like that on my animals, because I'm going to have twice as many losses if I go down that road. And if that's an acceptable practice for someone, that's great. It's your farm, do your thing. That's kind of not okay for me to know that I have the tools in my toolkit, but I'm refusing to use it just based on that. As far as meat production goes, all of those classifications of dewormers and other medications will have a withdrawal period where you should not eat the eggs, you should not harvest the meat. They're all going to be very clearly listed on the label. I try to extend that as much as possible, but listen, if I have to give one of my pigs an antibiotic because he's septic and has, is going to die if he doesn't get an antibiotic, and then 2 years later it's time to harvest him, I'm not going to say, well, 2 years ago I gave him an antibiotic, so I'm not going to eat him. That just doesn't make any sense.
And so that's the thing too. Like people are asking me right now with my chickens, why are you not feeding organic? And I'm like, because your production drops and your feed costs go up, and I can't afford to. I'm sorry. Like, if you want to pay me $20 a dozen for eggs, sure, I can do organic, but the math doesn't math. And so I'm just doing the best I can. And same thing with my chicks. I feed them medicated feed. I do medicated feed for the first couple weeks just because, your losses are way less. I can't afford to lose all those chicks. And then I also don't have to vaccinate them then, because that's the thing that people don't understand is you either vaccinate or you feed medicated feed. It's one or the other, and so I'm just doing the best I can. And that's the part that people need to realize and understand in homesteading and farming is you've got to take your ideologies, which are great. There's nothing wrong with the organic ideologies. Like less is best. I don't even know a conventional farmer that wants to spray. Like they don't want to. It costs money, right? But they're going to do the least amount that they have to do in order to make the bottom line pencil out. And so with organics and with our food and with our flocks and with our goats and with our sheep and with our cows and with our gardens and with all of it in agriculture, You're going to do what you have to do to keep your plants or your crops or your animals alive. And then the math will math. And, you just got to do what you got to do and take your ideologies and dump them out the window. Just plain and simple. Dump them out the window and do the best you can. Hold on for the ride.
Yeah, I think I would tell people to hang on to the ideologies, but drop the absolutes. I get so aggravated with absolutes. Never do this. Always do that. There's absolutely. There are absolutely no absolutes in this world. Sorry, there just aren't. And so for somebody to say, I will absolutely never do is just not realistic. You're not really farming for the long term if that's your case. Hold on to the ideologies. Always try to do better than we did yesterday, but don't shoot yourself in the foot. That doesn't make any sense at all. And it's interesting. I mean, talking about the organic process. So the question that I get is, are your chickens, are they vegetarian? Have you met a chicken? The chickens are absolutely not vegetarians. Well, I'd like mine to only be fed vegetarian. I'm like, okay, listen, I could put them in a box and only give them vegetarian feed. The second you let them outside, they are no longer vegetarians. They eat bugs, they eat worms, they eat mice and toads and lizards. they will eat it all. It's a huge source of protein for them. If you have a vegetarian chicken, you probably don't have a very robust system in your chicken. And the other thing that I look at with the chickens and the goats, when we talk about losses, sometimes the losses are really okay, because if you have a true husbandry program, if you really are doing a breed up program and breeding the best, if I have a goat that gets parasites and drops dead, I didn't want to breed that one in the first place. Sad. I'm sorry that I lost the goat, but I didn't want to breed that one. If I have a chicken who is constantly sick, I'm not going to be pouring money into it, nor do I want to pop one of her eggs into the incubator and have a bunch of her babies. I don't want to propagate that health problem within my system. So I don't do vegetarian feed. I don't do organic feed because my guys are running around the woods eating whatever they want to eat. I don't necessarily know what they're eating. I can't label anything and say it's truly organic. If my pig wanders into the farmer's cornfield and munches on an ear of corn that is not organic, and I'm not going to fence everybody in because, well, that just doesn't work for my model.
And I've got fences because I'm on a property here that I don't own, and I really hate it when they get in my fucking garden, pardon my language. But yeah, like I've got them fenced in, but they're in big pens and they're still eating the bugs. Like I'm sure there's not an ant in those pens because they're eating them all. And and yeah, I've seen a chicken eat all kinds of. I've seen chickens eat other chickens. Like that's what they do. Chickens are gross animals. Actually, they're disgusting little creatures, and people like idolize them and like the pinch. They're disgusting. Like chickens are gross. Pigs are gross. Animals are kind of gross. Like they're not pets. That's the part of this whole homesteading movement that I think people need to understand and realize is animals are not pets. Like farm animals are not pets. They're gross creatures, and it's our job to do the animal husbandry the best we can to keep them alive, do the best we can. I had a little thing that Joel Salatin. Do you know who Joel Salatin is?
Very much.
I've met the man. He's like the king. He's like the idol of homesteading and idol of farming. Like he is, he's like the godfather. I met him once years ago. And what did he say? He said something about, let's talk bird flu. That's what it was. He was talking about bird flu. And like you were saying, he was saying that with the bird flu, what they're doing right now, what the government is doing right now is just going in and killing whole flocks. Well, talk about stupidity, because what you want to do is you want to kind of let that flock do its flock thing. And yeah, some will die to bird flu, but the ones that are left, the strong ones, the ones that it can fight it off, the ones that are building an immunity to it, those are the ones that you want to keep. And those are the ones that you want to breed because there's a natural system to it. But when the government just comes in and knocks it all off, there's bird flu, let's just kill it all and kill everything all around it. Like, that's insanity to me. That is not nature. That is us trying to play God, and that is not going to work. We're going to have more bird flu and worse strains of bird flu if we do that. And so, yeah, I was listening to a podcast of his, and he was sharing that, and I was like, yeah, like we need to get back to common sense, and we need to actually, so I'm going to talk politics, and politics in the States, politics in Canada, politics in all these countries where you've got your levels of bureaucracy that are just governing farming and agriculture and food. And I mean, I dealt with it when I had my big, greenhouse and my big farm, but it's the bureaucracy that's going to kill the small farmer, and he who controls the food controls the people. And that is not where we want to head. I feel like we need to head to more small farmers like you, more small farmers like me. That's why I'm doing the podcast, is let's do more small scale agriculture. And the bureaucracy and the people in those suits and ties that know nothing about a farm, keep your bureaucracy to yourself. Like, I don't want to hear it. And honestly, like, I don't even listen to it. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do for my farm and for my people. And I don't care. Like, I don't even get stressed out over what the government's doing, because it's not my pig, not my farm. Like, my pig and my farm are right here. And so, yeah, we can only control what we can control, which is us and our communities.
Yeah.
Parallel system.
Yeah. Amen. So here's when I kind of lost faith in the government when it comes to, first of all, you were absolutely correct. Small farms and small homesteads are kind of the way we have to go with this. We could go down the whole rabbit hole, which you probably have with others. Monocropping, all of the big commercial, the CAFOs, all that kind of thing is sustaining us right now. Okay, fine. We've built to the point where we have to have this, and not saying shut it all off, because whew, boy, would that be ugly. However, we have to understand that the small things, that is our future. The small thing is the small groups, the small organizations, the communities, agricultural communities are the way forward. This is the way we have to go. This is not sustainable to do it the way we are. They're estimating that if we continue the way we are with commercial farming, crop farming, we have about 60 years worth of soil left. We are eroding the soil. We are killing the soil. We are destroying the biome that is in the soil. You can't continue on that path. And I am not blaming commercial farmers, because this is the corner they've been backed into. They don't have another option at this point, because our government will literally pay them to do it this way. They have to. They don't have an option. They really can't rebel and say, no, I'm going to go do this. But you know who can? We can. The little guys can. Those of us raising our backyard chickens, raising pigs in our backyards, raising goats in our backyards, those of us with an acre or two who are willing to sustain ourselves. And guess what? There's a little bit of extra for my neighbor. And that's how this is going to work. But we have to, I'm going to channel Joel for a second here. We have to stop strangling the small farmers and the homesteaders and allow them safely, smartly. Let's just not, switch all the regulations off. But let's make smart decisions. And here's where I lost my faith in the government to make smart decisions. When we started looking at how to sell our eggs, I wanted a farm market on site. So I have a small farm market on site. We sell lots of stuff from the farm. We sell things from other local farmers. When we were initially starting that, and I said, eggs, obviously if we have chickens, that's what we're doing. We're selling eggs. So let's look at how do we do this? I was going to the farmer's market and I was selling bread and jam and all kinds of things. And I'd like to take eggs with me. In order to sell eggs at a farmer's market in the state of Ohio, I have to get a license from my health department. They have to come out and inspect my water because they're looking for a very specific bacteria. I have to wash the eggs. I have to refrigerate the eggs when they get to the farmer's market. And that license costs me about $180 a year. I only charge $3 a dozen for my eggs. $3 a dozen. Yeah. I have to sell 60 dozen eggs just to pay for that license if I want to go sell them at a farmer's market. And I have to have a refrigerator, which needs electricity. Now, we have a 3-hour farmer's market. I plug that refrigerator in at the beginning of the 3-hour farmer's market, and by the end of it, it's still not down to the temperature that it technically needs to be in order to keep my eggs safe. So I have to jump through all of these hoops to take my eggs 20 minutes down the road and sell them at my local farmer's market. If I want to sell the same eggs, on site, in a cooler at the end of my driveway, I need nothing. Nothing. I don't have to wash them. I don't have to label them. I don't have to have inspections. I don't have to have a certificate. I don't have to have anything. I don't have to refrigerate them. I stick them in a cooler at the end of the driveway. I live right beside Amish country. People do it all the time. I'm telling you, every other driveway has a cooler sitting at the end of the sign that says free range eggs. Okay. Yeah. Well, how are those eggs safer than the ones I'm taking to the farmer's market. And when I realized that those two regulations just don't work hand in hand, I said, we don't know, our governing body doesn't have a clue about agriculture. Not really. We have to insert the right people. I was so excited when Joel was talking about getting involved with politics, because we have to insert the right people, the experts, trust the experts. But as long as corporations and lobbyists are the ones who are financially controlling our government, that stuff's not going to change. But if it doesn't change, we're not going to have sustainable agriculture. There's no way to do it on the commercial level that we're talking about. The fact that I can't have my pigs safely butchered. I'm allowed to go, I can do them right here in my own driveway if I want to. And I can stick those in my freezer. I'm allowed to eat my own meat. I'm allowed to do my own thing, but I'm not allowed to sell that to my neighbor down the road. Why don't we trust that neighbor to make the smart decision herself? Why do we have to regulate that? Why do we have to regulate? We're constantly trying to legislate morality. We're trying to legislate common sense, and you can't do that. And that's why we have layer upon layer upon layer of really stupid egg rules.
I just had this thought, like goosebumps when I'm talking to you, and I just had this thought. Let's treat people like the bird flu, and let's let nature take its course. You know, if you eat something foolish, you're going to die, but that might help our population. You know, well, the strong will survive and the weak will die. You know, like, we need to start treating agriculture like that. You know, if you're that dumb, you're going to die. And so I think we need no bureaucracy after this conversation, and let's just do farm and agriculture, and you and I will survive, and my kids will survive, and your kids will survive, and maybe some of the city people, be smarter. Maybe the bureaucrats that maybe they might get sick and die of bird flu. That sounds terrible. I don't wish anyone dead. But the point is, like, common sense, let nature take its course. We need more of that.
There's something to be said about that. But I will say one thing that we are lacking before we go down that road is education. We don't educate people. And I love this. Look at this. You're setting me up for this beautiful segue. One of the things that we want to do here at Toby Way Farm next year is start educating people, like, for real, like on a real legit basis. I want to have stay and learn programs. I want to have people come here, work my farm. Isn't that beautiful? I want you to pay me to come do my farm work.
I dream about that. Honestly, like, that is my business plan in my head. I dream about that. Come and stay on my farm, and we'll be one happy family, and you come and you do the work, so I don't have a labor bill, and you're going to learn about farming and learn about what real education and real agriculture is.
That's really kind of what it's all about, is getting people to get their hands on things like this. And we talk about, so you mentioned city people, and they're not exposed to. How can they possibly learn? They're not exposed to. They don't know these things. There's hyperbole out there. There's memes out there. There's, if you're getting your education from Facebook, I'm sorry, but you're doing it wrong. So I want to bring them out here and show them, listen, if you handle it properly, raw milk is one of the very best food sources that you can take in. Stop buying the crap from the stores, because that is not doing, you're drinking water, you're drinking colored water at this point. All of the good stuff in it has been killed, systemically killed. And it's done because, and I understand this, pasteurization was not a thing. It really wasn't even a needed thing until we started shoving 5,000 cows into a single facility to do the milking and the processing. And we're like, oh gosh, people are getting sick. Well, yeah, duh. People are getting sick. So then we started having to pasteurize things. We didn't need to prior to that, because people had common sense. They had 3 cows that were well fed, that were in clean environments, that were not over anything. They milked those, they drank the milk, the good bacteria was there, the good enzymes were there, all the good stuff was still there because nobody was killing it. And we didn't have the problems. I'm not saying that people never got sick. That's not what I'm trying to say. But we didn't have those problems. And can I just say, the fact that I can drive to town to buy cannabis legally in Ohio, but I can't go to my neighbor and legally purchase raw milk, is absolutely insane to me. I'm such a criminal, and I think I'm kind of okay with that. Seriously. So the other piece of that, though, is the small farms, which we have said, those small farms, they need to have an opportunity to get their products out there. And people, once they're educated, to make the right decisions, right? They pull up to a farm and they get their milk and they look around and like, this place isn't clean. I don't like the practices that they're doing. I talked to the farmer and I don't love the way he's doing this. I'm not going to purchase my milk here. But educate them. Let them make those decisions for themselves. People are smart. Individual people can make good decisions if you give them the right tools. I want to bring people out here. I want them to, it's still a vacation. You're still going on vacation. We'll have rural campsites here, in the woods that people can come out and hang out if they want to. RV parking if they want to do that. They can stay in one of the many B&Bs that are around that are fantastic. Come hang out with us, learn about chickens, learn about goats, learn about beekeeping, learn about my garden, learn about my farm pond, and the fact that it's not just a water catchment system, it's actually serving a purpose on my pond. Learn about woodworking that my husband does. Learn about, we have an herbologist in town, this tiny little town. We've actually got a fantastic lady. She does all this herbal stuff. Go spend the morning with her. You pay to come out here and you get so much out of it. You will learn how to do the things, or at least where to start asking the questions, because right now people don't even know what questions to ask.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement.
And you're 100% right, because they just don't even, we're so far removed. See, back, 50 years, 100 years ago, your grandpa or your uncle or your aunt or you were born onto a farm, right? There was not that removal. I brought chickens to the farmer's market, and I had an older woman say, I've never seen a chicken before in real life. And I was like, what? Like that is how far removed we are from our food system. And we need to get back to that, And when you're talking about raw dairy, I know a couple of kids and they couldn't have dairy. If they got dairy, they would get sick and they were not good. And the mom got her hands on some raw dairy, gave that raw dairy to her kids, her little kids, and boom, they can have some dairy again. Like store-bought, if they got into it, if someone gave them an ice cream cone, they can handle that dairy. And that's the point, is we're missing so many good things in our food over health and safety. Like it's stupidity, and it's making us sicker and weaker, and we're going to be the weak ones in the bird flu that are going to be knocked off if we keep eating the grocery store quote unquote food. We need to get back to the real food, the real things, the real, what we need to sustain ourselves and how we're designed and created.
Yeah, if you really want to understand your own health, start studying your gut biome. I mean, my mind is blown, because in the last couple of years, I have watched a bunch of documentaries, read through a lot of things that indicate actually your body is craving the wrong things because you literally have the wrong things in your gut. Like you literally have the wrong bugs that crave sugar, that crave wheat, that crave the stuff that is not good for you, the stuff that creates inflammation, because that's what you've fostered. Once you start fostering the right stuff in your gut, you actually don't want sugar. You don't want the things that your body doesn't need. And if you think about it, every time you pump something like that in there that doesn't add nutritional value, it's just a place filler, it's a calorie builder, you put that in your body has to do something with it. Well, your body is doing something with that. It's not building your immune system. It's not putting calcium into your bones. It's not doing something else. Your body has finite resources. If you're asking those resources to go take care of the Twinkie you just ate, that's resources it can't put someplace else. That is allowing cancer to sneak in the back door and say, hello, I'm over here, but you're not paying attention because you're dealing with a Twinkie.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know a guy, he's a holistic nutritionist, and what he says, it's the power of choice. And that comes back down to our food. It comes back down to our raw dairy. It comes back down to the eggs, the unwashed eggs and the things that are so bad, you know, it's the choice. I like, but that's what freedom is. Freedom is freedom for all. And so you have the choice to eat the Twinkie. Like, we still have the freedom to eat a Twinkie. But we should also have the freedom to drink the glass of raw milk. And that's where it's at, is, it's freedom of choice. And is one Twinkie going to kill you? No. I think there's the other extreme too, where people get so extreme on the farm. I only eat organic. I only do this. I only do that. And they don't eat the Twinkie. Like, eat the freaking Twinkie once in a while. It's not going to kill you, right? Like, there has to be some balance. There has to be some, give and take. On a farm, there's give and take. In nature, there's give and take. It's not always pretty, but you can eat the freaking Twinkie if you need to.
Yeah, and there's a very good segue into a myth of homesteading. The myth, one of many myths of homesteading, is it's farm to table. You create everything that you're going to eat. You supply everything on the farm that your family's going to eat, and that's just not realistic. And it's also it's not fun. It's too much work, and it's not fun. It can be done, but one person's probably not going to be able to do all of the work. So last night I made a comment to a friend of mine that I was chatting with, and I said something about eating right. I said, oh, well, except tonight, because tonight's hamburger helper and instant mashed potatoes. Because frankly, farm to table doesn't happen every day. It just can't. It's not realistic. People get it in their heads. If I'm not doing all of this, if I'm not gardening and growing everything, and I'm not growing all of our own meats, and I'm not doing all of the things, I'm not a real homesteader. Oh, yeah, no. You totally are. Give yourself a pass and eat the damn Twinkie.
Yeah, well, and that's just it. Like, in a starvation situation, like if the grocery store is shut down, I sure can live off of what I got here. Like, as could you, and you could feed a lot of people. But reality is sometimes, as farmers, as homesteaders, as, people producing food, we sacrifice meals at our table to put food on others. And so I had a vegetable farm for years, and sometimes the only cob of corn that I ate from my own field was the one that I shucked at a farmer's market and ate raw, because that's all I could do, because I was never home. I was selling all this food at a farmer's market, eating off the backs of food trucks. Like, you do what you got to do. And so when you have the ideologies, and then you're right, you feel like a failure. So homesteaders, give yourself a break. You can't do it all. If you need to, eat the meal off the food truck because it's okay. Eat the Twinkie because it's okay. It's not going to kill you once in a while. And as a farmer, you got to do what you got to do to keep that farm going. And if that means you have to have some freaking McDonald's on the way home from a farmer's market, that's just, maybe I don't suggest McDonald's, but that's just what you've got to do. It's not going to kill you. And yeah, like, that's the portion of the ideologies. Like, but you're doing the best you can, and you're going to have your whole chicken, and you're going to have your garden full of vegetables, and you're going to make those chicken and vegetables sometimes, you're still going to eat better than most who are eating only at McDonald's and only at, wherever. Like, yeah, it's better choices. Same thing with organic. It's just one better choice. The chicken, the farm fresh chicken, is still a better choice than chicken nuggets.
Yes. Do better, not perfect. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Perfect is beautiful, and perfect looks great on Instagram, but perfect is not, it should not be the target. Good should be the target. Better than yesterday should be the target. I should be doing better than I was when I didn't know. Now I know better, I'm going to do better. Every day, maybe not, but most days I'm going to do better. But if I'm aiming for perfect, I'm going to fail all the time. So absolutely give yourselves a break on this. You have to start somewhere. Homesteading is a mindset, not an activity. It is a mindset. It is a mindset of doing better, learning, teaching yourself, being prepared. You're right. We saw a lot of problems with the food chain, the supply chain for food during the coronavirus. I think that was a big eye opener for a lot of people, because suddenly they realized how vulnerable we really are. Something that a lot of us knew all along. That's why we've been doing this. We knew that that kind of thing can happen. We're not worried about zombies, and we're not worried about World War III. We're worried about the truck didn't make it to Walmart and I still have to feed my family.
And that's the point, right? We just have to get back to that. We just have to get back to our roots and nature and, where we started off, and give yourself some freaking grace. Just give yourself some freaking grace. If you're a homesteader and it's not going well and you end up at McDonald's one day, it's okay. Just stop the guilt. Just forgive yourself. Move on tomorrow. Eat your fresh chicken and your fresh vegetables tomorrow. But it's okay.
Okay.
You're not gonna die from one day of McDonald's. McDonald's on a regular basis. Maybe you will, but one day McDonald's. It's okay, and just give yourself more grace, and that goes into your mental health as well, right? So we're coming up to the top of the hour here, actually, and I've got a meeting at the top of the hour. So I love this. I could keep going on and on forever, but I want to have you back.
I was going to say, maybe I'll come back.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation. So any last final words of wisdom on, we've chatted feed, goats, ivermectin, politics. We haven't touched a lot on religion, but I don't think we got time right now. But any final words for people just getting into homesteading?
Yeah, so we'll hit religion next time. My biggest tip, honestly, is build a community, and that doesn't happen overnight, but start networking. One day you're going to realize, you're going to look back over the last 3 years and say, gosh, I've actually created a community, and it happened organically. I didn't have to force it. Create a community. You cannot do everything. You cannot have the cows and the chickens and the pigs and all the things and hold down a job, because honestly, most homesteaders have to hold down a job. Most of us are not paying the bills by, eating goats. That's not how this is working. So form a community. We have people who come out and help us with all kinds of things. I don't drink our goat's milk. I make soap with it to sell in the market, but I still drink milk. So I needed to find a dairy farmer that I could get milk from. I don't butcher my own pigs, not because I can't butcher my own pigs, but because that's a time-consuming process that I choose not to do. I have other things I need to do time for. But you know what? The guy over the hill is really good at it. Like, he's done it for a long time. He's the expert. I'm going to let him do it. I have another friend who processes chickens. I can absolutely process my own chickens. I don't have all the tools for it, or do I want all the tools for it? He has it. So he does that, and in return, I help his 4-H kids with goat stuff. Barter. Learn to barter, learn to trade. You have a lot more to offer than what you think you do, but you have to get started somewhere. Start small. You're going to go way too big, way too fast. That's just how it's going to work. It's how it works for absolutely everybody. So don't freak out when you get to that point. That's when you start gliding and saying, where's my community? I need a safety net. And then you find out that there's a billion other people out there doing exactly the same thing way too fast. You help each other out. Build your community. It's good for your mental health. In the end, I think that's actually what this is all about. Connecting. It's connecting with nature, with your people, with your family, with your God. It's connecting.
I couldn't say that any better myself. You're 100% correct, and that's the message over and over and over again. Build your community, find your people, and start out small. Do a couple things and do them well. I think homesteaders get into they put all the irons in the fire. I have to have all of it all at once, and that doesn't work. It's expensive. It doesn't work. It doesn't pay the bills. They don't tactician out. Like, you can't do it all. Find your community. Do what you can. Be a producer of some kind. And if you're in the city or if you're in a town, you can be a producer too. Just find what you can do with the resources and things you have. Build your small business and then build your community. That's the message of today. So thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate your time. This was a great episode. And so where can people find you? How can people follow you?
Yeah, people can find us on Facebook, Toby Way Farm. Toby was the name of a dog. You'll see our little story on there. It's pretty cool. We're Toby Way Farm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, www.tobywayfarm.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.